Hello, my name is Bismark Quartey. I work with Participatory Development Associates. I'm privileged to make a presentation on participatory learning to changing community norms towards child protection, spotlighting the child rights in gold mining in Ghana project. There is a project that is being implemented by Participatory Development Associates with technical and funding support from Free the Slave and also its district-based NGO partner, Social Support Foundation. Today, there are many challenges mitigating against the hopes of families, community leaders, district authorities, and government in general on the issue of informal mining in gold areas, in particular, child labor, worst form of child labor, and slave-like activities in Ghana. Child labor, especially its worst form, constitutes blind on the development of every country, as children are a nation's most valuable assets and its human resource base. What are efforts being made to counter worst form of child labor and slavery-like activities in Ghana? There are laws and conventions, we have charters, etc., that Ghana is implementing to eliminate child labor, worst form of child labor, including slave-like activities. We can even talk of the worst form of child labor as captured in the ILO Convention 182, which include all forms of slavery or practices similar to slavery, such as sale and trafficking of children, serfdom, and forced or compulsory labor, including forced or compulsory recruitment of children for use in armed conflict, procuring and offering of children for prostitution or for production of photography or for photographic performance, and use or procuring or offering of a child for illicit activities, and trafficking of drugs. All these are contained in the ILO Convention 182, which Ghana has rectified. But the question now is, are some of these issues within the convention peculiar, or are they happening in Ghana? Article 28, Section 2 of the 1922 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana provides that every child has a right to be protected from engaging in work that constitutes a threat to his health, education, or development. This provision finds expression in the Children's Act 1998, Act 560. The Human Trafficking Act 2005 is also there. We have the Domestic Violence Act. We have the Criminal Code, which was also amended into an act in 1998. We have the African Charter and the Rights and Welfare of a Child. We have an ILO Minimum Age Convention. In addition to all this, the government of Ghana also considers the elimination of worst form of child labor, including slave-like activity, as a priority for the enhancement of the living standard of its people and sustainable development of the country. Since ratifying the ILO Convention 182 in 2000, various sectorial interventions have been undertaken. Some of it include the ILO IPAC National Plan of Action. We have the ICI project, we have the Impact project, we have other projects being implemented by international bodies like UNICEF. We have World Vision implementing such programs. We also have international needs also providing such programs, all in effort to try and eliminate issues of worst form of child labor in Ghana, including slave-like. There are some challenges, and as every country faces a challenge, we must have a way of going around those challenges to move forward. As a result, we have the National Plan of Action that was prepared through a long consultative process and has been mainstreamed into the work plan of government departments, agencies, and other institutions. However, this seems not to be doing bad generally, but has a lot of work to do to ensure the elimination of worst form of child labor and other forms of slavery in Ghana. Although the NPA has prioritized child trafficking, fisheries, mining and quarrying, ritual servitude, commercial sex exploitation of children, child domestic servitude, portrayal of heavy loads, agriculture, street hawking, including begging, there is the perception that much focus has been on the cocoa growing areas, fisheries, and until recently, commercial sex exploitation of children. Now we ask ourselves, who is taking care of the other areas and other slavery-like activities that are hampering the handsome development of children? As if these challenges are not enough, it's being worsened by the issue of inadequate resources for state institutions responsible for preventing, responding to slavery-like activities. Lack of effective enforcement of criminal laws against child slavery and slave-like activities. Inadequate public education on slave-like activities, people having slavery lens, which most at times lead to what? Ignorance. Just to speak to this a little bit, most people up to now do not believe that slavery still exists in Ghana, and that is even making it difficult for them to pay attention to some of the signs of possible slavery around them. Slavery could be just behind their back door, but they wouldn't say it because it's something they do not believe in. A typical case study was one when I was engaging with district stakeholders, and a political figure asked me this question: do I still think there's slavery in Ghana? He doesn't think so. So this as an isolated case, how would such a person pay attention to the issue of slavery around him? Child poverty is also considered as one of the challenges hampering the country of child labor, worst form of child labor, and slavery activities. Inadequate comprehensive training of state institutions responsible for child protection, such as the Department of Social Welfare at the district level, traditional and religious leaders, to be able to respond to sex trafficking, sex abuse, hazardous labor, including modern forms of slavery, is a major challenge. Our chief and our social protection system that will support people who are actually affected by these cases is actually not functioning as we all expect. All the above may explain why government and other civil society has not paid attention to issues of slavery in the mining areas, especially illegal gold mining communities. Let's look at the whole issue of slavery-like activities, worst form of child labor in Ghana, in the context of Ghana. As I indicated earlier on, most of the issues in the ILO convention that Ghana rectified, which are considered as worst form of child labor, do not pertain to our context, but generally could be found in other African countries and other parts of the world. One of the challenges also in dealing with this issue of slavery is we putting it in context, which type of slavery really exists within our country. and not the typical definition given by the western part of the country as slavery. That's just by the way. We now want to look at the social cultural context, which actually promotes or sometimes feed or breed this issue of slavery. In Ghana, we tend to view children more as property of parents and guardians, instead of viewing children as distinct individuals with special needs and rights. Children need to know that they have a right to take certain decisions. They have the right to education. They have the right to health. They have even the right to play and also develop their own potential. But we decide to direct children anyhow in our country. And this sometimes poses a challenge for us as a country. The nature of our socialization in Ghana and the role of the extended family through foster age creates an atmosphere in which sexual rights and other basic rights of young people can be compromised. For example, many children are forced to work even by their parents through mental and physical threats. Should a child refuse to do a work that an adult is asking him or her to do, the likelihood of that child being beaten or denied food is high. With time, the child learns to obey, knowing the consequence of not doing what he or she is being asked to do. They have also been made to believe that it is their responsibility to continue to contribute to the family income or livelihood. And as we do this, we are indirectly enslaving such children, because they do not have the freedom to say they won't do a particular act, even if it infringes on their rights, even if it infringes on their right to education, their right to development. The extended family system makes it possible for distant family members, such as aunties and uncles and others, trusted as guardians, who are in fact traffickers, and I'm using that advisably, to adopt children with the promise of giving them better opportunities in urban settings, which can lead to child exploitation. Having talked about all this, we have different partners working on different projects. But Free the Slave, an organization based in Washington, D.C., did an interim research in the gold mining area and identified that the issue of slavery is ongoing. And more organizations are focusing on cocoa areas and other areas of the economy, but with little attention or no attention to the gold mining area. So they then partner Participatory Development Associates, a development consultancy firm in Ghana, to collaborate and work on what we call the child rights projects in mining communities, with the support of our district partner Social Support Foundation. This project actually started as a pilot project and is currently running in two districts and one municipality. That's Obuasi municipality, and Obuasi is considered the heart of gold in Ghana. Adansi North, Amansia Central, all in the Ashanti of Ghana. What was the purpose of this project? The main purpose of the project was to create an environment that will protect children from sexual exploitation, harmful labor, and abuse in the informal mining areas. Our expectation were that following on from the learning section, participants will take steps to protect children from sexual violence and harmful labor. It was also expected that if the basic group learning work was done well, the learning groups will sustain their concern over a long period. Also, residents in other areas will start to become aware of what is happening, and this will create demand for similar process. The heart of the project was to see how we could mobilize communities to sit down and analyze their own situation and take steps to address their situation. Now, one of the strategy was to form what we call the child rights learning groups. Our approach to the project and the methodology was to ensure that our work, one, is a bottom-up, community-based and contextualized. That means the people themselves might realize the situation, they will come out with their own solutions, take steps to address their own situation. And the issues they'll be talking about are issues that live with them, issues that have to do with community norms, issues that have to do with traditional practices that does actually not make children express themselves, and also parents slavering their children indirectly as a result of those traditional practices. Also, our approach was a holistic, tackling multiple drivers simultaneously. We're looking at one of the drivers of people enslaving their child, people putting their child into danger by encouraging them to involve in sexual practices when they are not of age. And one of the drivers was poverty. So in this process, we also tried to link members or women or children, parents within this community to financial institutions that would support them upon an agreed terms by both parties. It's also cross-sectorial. We look beyond child labor, worst form of child labor, slavery, but we're also looking at the issue of parenting and also some social intervention that will help protect children and also reduce the likelihood of people enslaving their child. It is child-oriented. It is in the best interest of the child. It's community-led action to end slavery, but a partnership base, because community members, after coming up with issues that they want to solve, also partner with district agencies and authorities, NGOs, CSOs, faith-based organizations that will together help them to overcome certain barriers to their action, coordinated for efficiency and coherence. We ensure that all parties responsible for such issues within the district are consulted, are made part of the solution process. So we started a project by using what we call a narrative pedagogy method, where we printed illustrated booklets based on the findings we did initially, and the issues that came up of these findings made us to develop 4 thematic areas based on the outcome of the participatory research. And the initial 4 thematic areas were parenting, child labor, sexual abuse, and social protection. But we realize that social protection is something that cuts across every intervention that you have in the community. So we decided to mainstream that in the 3 booklets. As you see, we started initially in 10 selected mining communities, and by the end of the pilot phase we had 25 learning groups, and each of the learning groups is made up of not less than 15 people and not more than 20 people. As part of our method and approaches, we work with district-based NGO with some knowledge in the area of modern slavery. We also have regular meetings with district authorities to introduce our projects, for them to make input as and when the project continues. We also selected districts and communities using our grid criteria by both partners and district stakeholders. We also did our community entry, and we met with community leaderships. We met with chiefs and elders. We were head of institutions within the communities, or in a bid of they accepting to be part of the project or otherwise. We also selected and recruited lead researcher and some research assistants to help us in collecting our baseline data. These people were people who actually had deep understanding of the community social norms. We also had 21 days of participatory and qualitative research on child sexual exploitation and other slavery-like activities in the informal mining communities. We had a one-day synthesis workshop which brought together traditional leaders, assembly persons, selected members of each of the focus group that took part in the research in the various communities. We also had a one-day workshop to develop the team, because we wanted the teams to be owned by everyone, because this was something we're going to use to develop a booklet that will be used for a very long period of time, and the issues in it must relate to the lives of the people. We also selected a story writer, an artist, and a key translator, because we wanted the booklet to be done in the local language, the language of the people. The identification and recruitment of community facilitators. We identified 2 people, 1 male and 1 female, in each of the communities in which we were working. Actually, this identification was done by the community leadership by using some criteria. And some of them include: 1, the person must be somebody who is outspoken, somebody who is trusted by his people and trusted by the community, and when he speaks, people will listen. Then we also to train these community facilitators in the history of in the areas of conflict management, negotiation skills, facilitation skills, role play, how to manage a group. We also scout and formed learning groups, and these learning groups are made up of adults, people who are 18 years and above. And the learning group include parents, it includes members of the ASM, that's artisanal mining, represent people who do small scale mining. They are part of the learning group. And we have various church groups also being part of the learning group. Then these learning groups now became a group that meets on regular basis. Some people meet twice in a week, others meet thrice a week, and others meet once a week, depending on the area in which we are working in. They then develop action points based on the stories in the booklets, and one of it includes the need for them as a community to stop using their children for illegal mining, which is popularly known as galamsey, because they got to know the impact that has on the child, and also got to know that the child also has some basic rights that they have to actually respect. These action points, after we've worked for a long period in time, were put together and translated into a community-wide action plan. This was because the action point was mainly relating to the learning group, but there was a need to bring the bigger community together so that the change in attitude could be diffused among others who are not part of the learning groups. And one way of doing it is for them to prepare a community action plan that incorporates the vision, the mission, the objectives, and other activities that they would like to take to ensure that they end slavery in their community. And this actually led to people changing their attitudes and behavior as far as slavery activities in their was concerned. We attribute the success of the child rights projects to the participatory learning approach adopted by the project implementers with support of community leadership. The community, through the learning group meetings, came to realization that development in their community must be from them through self-initiated programs for action and demanding for their rights through appropriate engagement of community leadership and government stakeholders. Advocates enlistment of members into the learning group. Community members who wanted to be part of the learning group were encouraged to do so. All members convinced friends and relatives to be part of the learning group process. Each community set out a learning group register where records of each participant is entered for reference, setting their own rules to ensure confidentiality, transparency, and accountability. The learning groups have their own agreed rules and regulations to ensure order and free expression. It was a place where people shared their experience and also suggest ways of eliminating child labor, sexual exploitation, and other slavery-like activities within their community. The issue of self-animation and facilitation was also very great. The fact that the discussion was being led by one of their own, who is a community facilitator, gave them the confidence to air their views. They learned from the discussion. They self-animated themselves and they facilitated their own learning by coming up with solutions to overturn their challenges as individuals and as a group in a community. They also assign roles. Based on the action point, they assign roles to each other, and each person was responsible for a particular task in ensuring that they achieve their bigger objective as a group. For instance, some people were given the role of maybe meeting the Department of Social Welfare to have a discussion with them, to come and educate their people. Some of them reported cases of abuse to those who within their district. Some of them also have the role of going to schools to educate children about their rights and the impact the impact of galamsey on their health, on their education, and their development in general. All these were of the work of the group. We decided to evaluate the process after an 18-month pilot phase to see whether this model can be tried and tested. And these were some of the outcomes of the evaluation report, which was actually done by an independent evaluator. In the evaluation, some of the participants listed actions taken to protect their own children as committed to providing their basic needs, striving to pay their children's school fees, encouraging them to remain in school, pursuing an education, drawing themselves close to the children, and sharing in the problems of the children. This was something some of them thought initially it was difficult for them to do because of our cultural setting. Parents have also reduced corporal punishment meted out to their children, because through their learnings they got to know the impact that has on the child and the need to encourage their children rather than beating them. Through the activities of the learning groups, participants also increase their awareness of which arm of government to contact in the case of child abuse. Some of the people just didn't know where to report a case of abuse, a case of slavery, or a case of trafficking. They didn't know where to report such case if they come across it in their community. But through their learning process, they got to know who to go to and when to go there, and the roles of those people. The project therefore improved participants' knowledge on government institutions that are responsible for taking action at the risk to help children at risk of exploitation, and what roles are expected of these institutions. They now became sympathetic towards children and did not assign blame to children as much as the control person did. There was a change of attitude, how they relate to children. They also knew the legal roots. They were exposed to some of the legal issues concerning trafficking, slavery issues in Ghana, like the Children's Act, the Trafficking Act, the Domestic Violence Act. They were exposed to some of these. All these actually is what we considered as the heart of the project. In conclusion, I would like to say that to eradicate worst form of child labor and other slavery-like activities, or slavery, modern form of slavery in Ghana, and to make impact in the lives of the poor or the vulnerable at risk, there's a need for a social change. And this social change must start with the people themselves, must start from the grassroots. It must not be someone telling them, but someone facilitating their learning for them to appreciate the situation. This can be simulated through social movements. And when I say social movement, I don't mean an NGO, a non-governmental organization, but different group of people, organization that believe in driving a social change, coming together to support in this process. Because the issue of slavery is with us, and the only way we can tackle it is to tackle it as a society, at the level of the household, the family level, the community, the school, district, and the nation. We must all give priority to slavery issues. We must all look out for the issue of slavery close to us, because it is very close to us than we think. And the only way we can do that is to have the slavery lens. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. I must acknowledge that this presentation has been made possible through the support I've gained from various colleagues, and also from our partner in the US, who are very inspiring to my work as an individual and to the work of our organization. I'm talking about Free the Slaves, and also to our district-based partner, Social Support Foundation. God bless all of them for the continuing partnership. Please feel free to send questions, suggestions to my email provided on this slide. Thank you for listening.